Alright, hi guys, I'm back. So this is going to be a little view of my lab area, my bench here, and then I'm also going to get into my AM transmitters. So right here I have my soldering station. It is the Xtronic 4000. Then I have a normal little BK Precision, I think it goes up to 32 volts, with a couple of amps. Here's my 40 amp power supply that goes up to 15 volts. This is my DDS signal generator that you can get from Feel-Elec, FY6800. You can get it on AliExpress or eBay. It's a really cheap signal generator, but it's very good. As long as you don't use it up to too high of a frequency, it works very well. It's got like an analog devices. It might be a 9850. It's some type of analog devices signal generator DDS. So it's very good. Then up here I've got a kilowatt. This is a kilowatt power supply, about like 2 volts to 50 volts, and supplies a kilowatt. So inside of here it's just a little voltage regulation system, and you supply it. So this isn't the actual power supply. This is just like a variable voltage regulator that is powered by, I've got 2 separate power supplies here, so I can choose which one I want to use. This one down here is a 50 volt, 1500 watt. This one right up here is a 90 volt, 1.2 kilowatt. So I use this black one. This is the one I typically hook up to this guy to give me my kilowatt power supply. It's 1500, so it's overkill. And it needs 50 volts, so that's why I use that one. This one up here is a 90 volt power supply, 1200 watts. And what I use this guy for is to power this shortwave transmitter right here. This is from Panagaiotis. See it right there? Panagaiotis. Panagaiotis AM. It's a Greek guy. The Greek guys really do radio stuff very well. There's a ton of Greek radio guys. Not sure why they're all Greek, but they seem to make the best radios, so a lot of my radios are Greek. So this is a 400 watt shortwave transmitter, 400 watt carrier, 1600 watt PEP, and it's got a DDS right here, and a PWM modulator. So this is an AM transmitter. But what I really wanted to get into in this video is AM broadcast transmitters, medium wave transmitters, not shortwave. So this is 400 watt shortwave. Now let's check out the beast. There it is. This thing is insane. I am completely blown away by this device. Why? This is 4 kilowatt carrier, 16 kilowatts PEP, 16 kilowatts of peak envelope, 16. And this is, I believe, a 3 or a 4U rack mount case, which is absolutely insane, because most transmitters in this power range, you know, we're talking about 4 kilowatts here. Most transmitters that are like this, they are way bigger. They normally, if you go to a professional broadcast company and you want a 4 kilowatt transmitter, it's going to be in a huge rack. It's going to take up a really large portion of the room. It'll look like a file cabinet, basically. It's going to be a filing cabinet. And this thing is a tiny little 3 or 4U. Look, here's my hand. See? It's not bigger than my hand. This thing is amazing. This is made by Hercules AM right there. And so what does it have here? It's got RF power. So that goes, you can set it 10 kilowatt or 1 kilowatt right there. So that will show you the modulation as well. It will bounce up and down. It's got a, what is it, heuristics. I don't know, but it stays. It's got a peak reading thing in it. This right here is the amperage, the MOSFET current. Right here we have the frequency. This is where it shows you what frequency you're transmitting. You can adjust the frequency, and you press this to unlock it, just so that if you bump this, it doesn't change the frequency. This changes the step that you change the frequency. And then over here, we've got the VU meter. This just shows how much you're modulating. So, and it's very accurate, actually. I compare it to this thing over here. So this is by Radio Engineering Associates. If you're going to broadcast on AM, you've got to get one of these things. Whether you're a ham operator or a pirate or whatever, you really should have this. This Radio Engineering Associates makes the best AM modulation monitors. So this will monitor how much you're modulating. And so I've used this thing, and I've compared this to this meter built into the transmitter, and it's very accurate. When it says 100% right there, it is 100%. It's very good. But this thing is good to have just in case there's a problem with the transmitter, or if this thing isn't calibrated perfectly, you want to see that you're modulating exactly right. So you get one of these things. And this one is for a 1 kilowatt, so I can't use it with this because this is 4 kilowatt. So with this one, I've got another one over here. I'm using this thing instead. See, this one says BCAS transmitter. So that's the one I've got there. And then this hooks up to the modulation port right there, which is basically just an attenuated signal putting out like a little bit less than a watt or whatever, and then that goes in there. It's a high impedance, so it doesn't suck it up. So, and then this on the other end, that's just a normal audio jack. Then that audio jack goes into the computer module, and then the other cable that comes out of that goes into a USB port. So it goes into the USB port, and that goes into the audio jack, that goes into the sampling device, and that goes into the attenuated output on the transmitter. That's the actual RF output, which is currently disconnected. So this is the transmitter. It's really amazing. That's one modulator on that side. So it's a PWM DDS transmitter made by AM Hercules in Greece. I believe I've looked at all AM transmitters on the planet, pretty much. All the different brands, all of them I've looked at. I haven't seen all of them in person, but I've looked at all their specs and everything. And I honestly think, despite the fact that this is one guy in his garage building these things, this guy builds the best AM transmitters on the planet. You do not get better than what this guy does. So the only problem with this guy's transmitters is they're not FCC certified. So if you're trying to use these at a real radio station, you may be able to if it's an emergency situation. And that's what I would really recommend. If you're at a real broadcast station and you need an emergency backup transmitter, and you don't want to spend, the same amount of money like to buy 2 transmitters, it's going to cost a lot. It'd be really good to have one of these as a backup transmitter. Even though technically this transmitter is probably better than like a Nautel or a BE or any of those. It's actually better, but you could use it as a backup because it's an emergency. But anyway, as I was saying right here, this is one PWM module right here on this side. Then on the other side, we've got another PWM module right there. The RF amplifiers, and those have 2 fans on them right there. And the cable right here, I've got a standard 220 volt American style. I'm not sure what this is called, but it's a 220 volt American style plug right there. So there is the transmitter. Now this is an antenna tuner which I am going to be using for shortwave band, but I am not currently using it for anything. but that's what its use will be in the future. This thing cannot be hooked up to this. It's not, it'll blow it out. But this is pretty good. It'll probably handle like 600 watts. Up here, this is my AM broadcast processors. See, it says LPAM broadcast processor. Of course, this is not low power AM at all, but it works and it's great. It's called the Shortwave 200. It's got tri-band limiting. It's got its AGC over there. It's got its pre-emphasis right there. Processor drive, that's how strong you want to drive the signal. Then you've got right here the low EQ, the high EQ, the peak control, which I just leave at 50-50. Output level, positive peak, which I'm only doing 100% modulation. I don't over-modulate. But you can over-modulate on AM. You can go up to like 130 or 140 on some transmitters. This one can modulate over 100, but it can only do that when it's at a little bit lower power. So if I run at 3 kilowatts instead of 4 kilowatts, then I can turn up the volume a little bit and I can get 130% modulation, which I do occasionally. I tend to run this thing at 3 kilowatts just to be safe. I don't like to push it up to 4 all the time. I'm sure it can handle it, but I'm actually not sure my antenna can handle it because it's sending sparks out the end of it. There's a lot of sparks coming out, so I want to make sure that the end of that insulator doesn't heat up too much and melt that rope, and then the thing will fall. So that's why I only run 3 kilowatts right now. But yes, this is a very excellent transmitter made by Hercules. On eBay, his name is Zerkvic 2010, Zercvic 2010. And his email is also zerkvic@hotmail.com. I'll put his contact details below this video, because this guy makes the best AM transmitters in the world, I have no doubt. And this thing sounds very, very good. It's reproduction quality. Like if this thing went up to 15 kilohertz, which I don't think it can, I'm limiting it currently to 5 kilohertz using this. But this thing can go up to 10 kilohertz with a jumper inside of it. But with this, if it went up to 15 kilohertz, I'm sure it would sound as good as the source material. It sounds very good. Something I've noticed about a lot of AM transmitters is they tend to distort the bass. The bass sounds really rumbly and like kind of strange. This one doesn't do that. But most of my other AM transmitters have done that. So that's something that this guy has gotten right. Alright, so back to my bench here. This is my scope right here. This is my spectrum analyzer Rigol DSA 815, also known as the Riglal. And this is signal generator, another Rigol signal generator right here. This one goes up a little bit higher. But this thing is a decent signal generator. I think it does 50 megahertz or something like that. And it does even higher than that with a sine wave. So that's what I've got for my AM stuff. So this thing can analyze an AM antenna as well. And I use this to analyze the AM antenna out there. I've got an adapter that converts from this connector, this N connector, into the DIN connector. It's right there. Currently I have it on the AirSpy. I've got an AirSpy hooked up. I think his name is Heracles. So here's his other transmitter. This is a 1 kilowatt transmitter from Hercules again, right here. This does 1 kilowatts, also very good quality. I liked it a lot. Frequency, step. This one doesn't have a lock. I think that's before he decided to install that. It's got a remote control. This is standby. So if you want to stop broadcasting without turning off the power, you use this. 1 kilowatt, 100 watt, SWR, frequency, VU meter, modulation, audio input, volume, power. So this is a 1 kilowatt, very good. I did have one problem though, I gotta say, it ended up being okay. He has wires running under this lip in here, and the wire got too close to one of these screws. The screw punctured right into the wire, and it was messing up the transmitter. This thing happened for a different reason, but it was making the transmitter not work. I was turning this on, and nothing was happening. Took me forever, but eventually I found it. It was this little thing. So I opened this up, cut the wire here, cut the wire here, and put a new piece of wire in there. So I was able to fix it, and I emailed him, I told him about the problem, so hopefully he doesn't do it again. So it's like, this is a very good transmitter, but people make mistakes sometimes. I'm not going to blame them for it. It's a small mistake. Now that I've fixed that, the transmitter works perfectly. So it's got 4 1 kilowatt bridge modules in the back of it. That's how it works. They're all mounted along the back of the transmitter. Eventually, at some point, I can open this up and show it to you, but you can watch his video on this transmitter and you can see it opened up, so you can see how it looks inside. So that is about it for this transmitter. This transmitter just hooks up to that DIN connector that I showed in the back there, and then that goes out to the antenna that I showed outside. These are some of my transmitter. This is my design. I designed this circuit board and I made this. It's got a little plug for a crystal right here. This is a shortwave transmitter. It can be a AM transmitter as well, but I'm using it for shortwave. It kind of works, but not really. It keeps blowing out. These MOSFETs keep blowing out, so I don't know what's going on, but it kind of works. This is the PWM for this thing. So it's a crystal controlled. That's a custom frequency crystal. You can go on DigiKey and you can find a custom program crystal. You type in how much you want the crystal, and they program the frequency exactly as you want, and then they send you the crystal. So that's what that is. Then over here, this is my more successful shortwave transmitter. This one actually works. But I cannibalized it, took some stuff off of it in order to make this transmitter, which doesn't work. So now I have 2 transmitters that aren't working. But this one is good. Once I put it back together, it will be good. I have this transmitter on my website. You can see how to build this transmitter. You can see the schematics. You can see everything on my website on how to make this transmitter. Okay, this is a AM and shortwave transmitter. This transmitter is another Greek transmitter. It's just got 2 MOSFETs. Mine has 8. This one has 2 MOSFETs. It does 100 watts. So it's a 100 watt shortwave transmitter. So I've got several. I've got this 100 watts shortwave. I've got this one, which should be about 400 or 500 watts. But see, this only costs like $400. This thing I built on my own probably cost like $250 for me to design and build this whole thing. This one cost $800. And this one's from Panagoidus. If you don't have the skills to build it, get this Panagoidus transmitter. You can go on eBay. I'll put a link in the description. You can get this. He did raise the price. It used to be $800. Now it's $1,000, unfortunately. But it's very good. It's got a really good low-pass filter. It's got 4 of these on it. It's got SWR. It's got temperature protection. So it's got all the protections you would need. It's got pretty much everything you would need. There's the audio. It's a little RCA. There's the power right there. Here's the standby switch. And here is the frequency adjust. So that's it. And to cool it, I'm using this little fan like how Hercules does in his kilowatt transmitter. I got one of these. keep it cool, and it's not as loud as having a fan like this. Like a bunch of these on the end are super loud. So this is really great. It's called the Stinger Crossflow Fan, 12 volt DC. So that's what it is. Alright, so a real broadcast transmitter, 4 kilowatts like this, probably $20,000. A small fraction of that price for this thing. So it's a very good deal. It's about the best deal AM transmitter you can get. If you want to get something that's not quite so big and beefy and crazy, you can get a small kit. Let's see if where is this kit?